The 2015 Corvette Z06 is a pure ball of fury ready to explode at the stomp of your foot. It is without a doubt the wildest child in the Corvette family tree, and being such, what could possibly tame it? Well, meet Granddad, the root of the family tree. Where the C7 Z06 is a drone from hell, the C2 Z06 is fearlessness reincarnate, storming the beaches of Normandy. Let's take a closer look at the family. So you think the Z06 is a fast car, right? Wrong. The Z06 ain't a fast car. The Z06 is a 3-second car. And there is a world of difference between merely a fast car and a 3-second car. Now, how does the Corvette become a 3-second car? Basically, it's the 6.2-liter V8, kind of the same as in the C7, but this is the LT4, so it's got a very neatly packaged supercharger up top here. But get this, 650 horsepower comes in at 6,400 RPM. The torque, 650 pound-feet of torque, comes in at like a super low 3,600 RPM. 1963 Chevrolet Corvette RPO Z06. This one is not optioned with the big gas tank. It has a heavy-duty suspension, and oh, did I mention they only made 199? So if you turned up to a Chevrolet dealership in 1963 and decided to spec your own Corvette Z06, you could have anything you want as long as it was an L84 327 cubic inch V8 with Rochester fuel injection, putting out 360 horsepower. Now that's not the only thing that changed underneath the hood if you spec'd a Z06. You also got a vacuum brake booster. Now truth be told, that was available as a standalone option on the base coupe and convertibles. What wasn't was a dual master brake cylinder. So here's something that I don't think was on offer on the 63 car, and that is a performance data recorder. So we hit this little app here, and basically what it is a camera. I don't know how HD it is, but there's a camera here in the windshield, and you can record your lap times. Well, it gives you 3 choices: sport, track, or no overlay. Okay, so belt in because we got a lot to cover here. The general theme is everything is much heavier duty. The damper, the anti-roll bar. There is a brake cooling here, a duct. You get that on the standard C7 and the Z51. This pushes more air than those cars into the brakes. This is the steel rotor. There is a carbon ceramic option, so if you get the Z07 package, I know it's confusing, on a Z06, that gives you carbon ceramic brakes, and it actually increases the diameter of the brake as well. While that's really interesting, what's more interesting is the pads. They allow for expansion and contraction of the actual rotor itself. So think about it. If you're driving this car under load, basically on a track, it's going to get hot and it's going to expand. Well, the springs in the actual pads allow for that expansion. So basically, the shape stays orbital, not turns into like a potato chip. Some of the other changes in the Z06, they've dropped a little weight by making the torque tube carbon fiber. You've got the E-diff here, and then if I were to put a C7 up in the air, you would see a brake cooler down here, but in a Z06, if you look in here, it is much bigger. So those are the bits underneath the car, but how does that translate to driving dynamics? Well, here we have a bit of a paradox. I mean, really, it's almost laughable, the limits of adhesion of this thing. And here's a great example. We've got a declining radius turn coming up here, and even if you were to try to take the wrong line, you couldn't disturb the balance of this car. Yeah, of course, if you were a moron, yes, you could kill yourself. But the reality is the combination of the balance of the platform with the magnetic ride control, and I've got it set to track right now, which even in a regular Z51 C7, I would always drive the car on track. But on the opposite side of the fence, and this is the real amazing thing. So, okay, we just got out of some turns here. Remember, magnetic ride control, let's go to winter mode. It's 70 degrees in Malibu, California, but we're gonna drive winter mode in the Z06. Completely docile car. You can take this thing to Costco and load it with 85 rolls of toilet paper. That is the odd dichotomy of the Corvette Z06. So for those of you that think a 1963 Z06 is simply a Stingray split window with a big gas tank, you would be wrong. Here's why. There are many changes in the suspension and the brakes. First off is a large stabilizer bar up front. Second is much thicker diameter to the springs. And then third, see this front piece here? This is basically an air duct so you can cool the brakes. But then behind the actual drum, there's this mesh so you can actually get air into the actual drum itself. But really, the piece de resistance is this fan thing here. The fan spins with the wheel, and it sucks air into the actual drum. And you can kind of see what it looks like here. It itself is pretty cool. It's got these slotted fins here, so it cools on the outside as well. Now look at this. Look at the thickness of this compared to this here. So basically, if you were to take this car out and say vintage race it, these are the pads you would put back in the car. So the suspension changes continue in the rear, but instead of heavy-duty springs, it's heavy-duty dampers back here. How much do you guys know about heavy-duty pickup trucks? So like in the Ford world, it's the 150 to the 250. And basically that's a reference to the rear suspension. How many actual leafs are in the leaf spring? So more leafs, heavier duty. Well, this is the heavy-duty suspension of the Corvette in '63, but it's actually the reverse. The less amount of leafs that are in the springs, it's a bit of a tongue twister there, it means heavier duty. I've been driving this thing now 2.5, 3 days, and I'm starting to get to know her a little bit. Like I know where to put the rear end when you go around a corner. It's an unusually balanced car. You wouldn't think a 1963 model year car is balanced, but you gotta remember this is a completely independent rear suspension. It's quite exotic actually when you look underneath it for the day, but it's more than the sum of its parts. It really comes together beautifully. Like this is nothing like driving in a Power from 1963. Why do I feel like I'm forgetting something else new about the Z06? Like any car, there's going to be complaints, and this is a bit of an odd one in that it's like a live by the sword, die by the sword kind of deal. This thing is designed for the track, which to me is not a bad thing. I would take this car to the grocery store, and I would take it to the track. But with a car that is such high limits of adhesion, you can't push this thing to its limits on the road, not even close. And I would argue most people on the track couldn't push this car to its limits. To see the difference between a Z51 C7 and this, you either have to have your own track or join one of those 100-club tracks. So you know I'll go far and wide to drive unique cars, but this was a really unique case to drive one of 199 63 Z06s. The deal I made with the owner was, yeah, you can come drive the car, but you gotta meet Bravo. Folks, this is Bravo. Take a guess where I had to go to drive the car and drive. Oh, holy shit. Hook 'em horns. Bye, Bravo. We've spent a lot of time talking about the $80,000 2015 Z06. You're probably wondering, what is that 1963 Z06 worth? Well, to answer that question, we went to our friends at Haggerty to get some insight on valuation. And we really need to put this in context. Back in '63, the most basic Corvette coupe set you back a whopping $4,252. If you opted for the Z06 option package, it was an additional $1,818.45. Now, fast forward to today, and if you had a 250 horsepower, 327 cubic inch, most basic Stingray coupe that could barely run, it would be worth $36,400. Now let's say for the sake of discussion, you check the option box for the 360 horsepower Rochester fuel injected Stingray coupe, and it could win Pebble Beach, it would be worth $259,000 today. Now this red car that I'm driving here that has the small gas tank but is a Z06, in this condition, is worth $374,000. Now Milton for the next one. If your car was one of the 63 that was fitted with the big tank from the factory, the 36-gallon tank, it would be worth $528,000. Not bad for a $6,000 investment in an old Chevy. Okay, so we haven't covered everything quite yet. And basically what we're forgetting is the aerodynamic changes. So that spoiler back there, it is much bigger than what you would see on a C7, and the whole idea is to push the car down on the ground more. It works in conjunction with a bigger splitter up front. Now, if you get the Z07 package, remember, not just the actual carbon ceramic brakes, you get a taller rear spoiler and you get a bigger splitter in the front. But it doesn't stop there. What they've done is designed a honeycomb grille. Think of it as like a Venturi effect to force more air to the radiator. The vent on the top of the hood, that's bigger. But think about this for a minute. It's not just downforce, it's getting more air to the bits you don't see. So like the C7 over here, remember when Taj told us about those two vents on either side of the haunches there? One goes to the diff cooler, one goes to the transmission cooler. Same deal here, but this one, notice there's a cover on it. It's designed to get 50%, 50 more air down to the same bits. Just so you guys know, this is a 2LZ, this is the mid-trim level car. So it has the basic seats. The seat backs have some support, but the bottom's terrible. Like, if I were buying this car, you've got to get the sports seats, especially if you're really going to take it to a track, which brings up a really good point. This car has a little bit of Lamborghini fever in it, in that you can't buy this thing in a tan color. Like, you can't get this in silver or gray or black. You got to get it in some wild color like yellow, or if I were getting it, sunset orange with the carbon hood, the carbon extensions, and the Z07 package. But along with that ridiculous color, you want the seats. And here's an important point. You are not going to buy that wild color scheme to impress others. You want that color scheme because you want to walk out to your garage every morning and say, wow. So what have we learned today? Well, in short, 52 years has not made a difference in the emission of the Corvette Z06. Both the 63 and the 2015 were cars you could use every day, but they have a mental patience side where you could take them to a track and have one hell of a day. But there is one major difference between the two that we did not discuss, and that is you can go to the factory and build the engine of your 200-mile-an-hour track car. I don't know if I'd want to do that, but you can, which brings up a unique question. Would you want to go to the factory and build the engine of your Z06? And let's say you're not a Corvette guy, which I don't understand why you wouldn't be a Corvette guy for this particular car. What car would you want to go to the factory and build your very own engine? Let us know in the comments below or via our social networks, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word. Until then, I am going to figure out a way to hide a torch red 2015 Corvette Z06 so Chevrolet never, ever gets it back. So here's the script. Click here to subscribe, click here to watch one of our 350 other episodes, and most importantly, share us with your friends. You're only wasting half your life on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. MotoManTV, all one word. I don't care who you share us with. Share us with your enemies. Just give the gift of MotoMan.